Hey, so good evening everyone. Mabuhay from the Philippines. My name's TJ. I'm your GBO ambassador here in the Philippines. And join with us today another GBO ambassador from Hong Kong, Leanne, and our members, David, Sharon, and welcome Miguel from Spain and Mr. Alvaro. Where are you from, Alvaro?
I am from Spain also.
From Spain also. So hey, welcome, welcome. So our event
I'm
uh-huh.
I'm really proud that you didn't find where I come from my English accent.
It's a big world out there, a lot of possibilities. A lot of people would accuse me of being American, but I'm not, so
Yeah,
just saying.
yeah.
Okay, so tonight we're going to have business expansion in the Philippines, which would be presented by Sharon. But before we do that, we'd like to get to know each other a bit better. So our agenda would be a minute pitch of everyone just to share who we are, what we do. And then after that, we'll proceed to Sharon's presentation, and then we open the floor for everyone to ask questions and have a meaningful conversation. So, of course, I will put Sharon at the last part because she's going to present anyways, and I'm going to introduce her again. So let's start with David. David, you have a minute to share about yourself, and I'm going to have a timer.
You're on mute, David.
David, you're on mute.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always first with you. You always pick me first.
Oh no,
Anyhow.
I'm looking at the screen. You're always at the top, so it's like counterclockwise for me. All right,
Okay.
ready? And
Yes, yes,
go.
yes. So I am from Switzerland before coming to the Philippines, where I've been now for the last 25 years. And I'm involved in a few businesses. One of them, which is Dinon Business Consultancy, where we assist foreign companies in setting up in the Philippines. And we assist her a lot with all kinds of business permits. Lately, we've been doing a lot of FDA registrations. I'm also selling disaster relief products, mainly to municipalities, and I'm also involved in a software company and an internet service provider. That's it.
Wow, 30 seconds. So thanks, David. But guys, you have a minute to introduce yourselves, okay? So don't be shy to tell more. So, okay. Next in my screen is Leanne. So, go ahead, Leanne.
Hello, everyone. I am born in Canada, raised in the US. Mother tongue is Cantonese, father tongue is English. I live in Hong Kong since 2016, and I'm a people person with a science background, and I run a 1.5-year-old business called Clearwater Science Consulting. I do science content creation, consulting, and coaching, and I'll add a fourth one, community building. And I am the GBO ambassador for Hong Kong.
Great, 30 seconds as well. I'm pressured to, keep up with your standards with David. So thanks, Leanne. Next would be Alvaro. So, Alvaro, you ready?
Yeah, PJ, thank you.
Go ahead.
My name is Álvaro. I'm partner of Thinking Abogados, a law firm that wanted to change the paradigm of legal services. We prefer, instead of being specialized on several legal fields, we prefer to be specialized on our clients. So, based on the specializing on our clients, we provide 360 degrees legal advice to them, trying to help them to be their legal partners and to solve their problems.
Thank you, Alvaro. Oh, we got a newcomer here. So, hi, Elias.
Hello, my friend.
Yeah, just to keep you up to pace, we're giving everyone a minute to pitch who they are and what they do, so you get to know everyone better. Are you up for it? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, let's go. 1 minute.
Yeah. Thank you very much. My name is Elias Kokinos, and I have my own audit firm in Cyprus. I also provide taxation, consultancy services, bookkeeping, anything that has to do with the profession. So, nice to meet you, boys and girls.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank
to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Elias. Okay, so next on my list is Miguel. Are you there, Miguel? You're muted, Miguel, just in case. Miguel? Okay, I guess Miguel's away from the keyboard.
He's being boring.
Okay, so I guess we'll skip Miguel for now. Maybe he's experiencing technical
Yeah.
difficulties. Who knows? Yep, he is. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'll introduce myself. I'll give myself a minute. So hi everyone. So I'm TJ. Aside from being the GBO ambassador here in the Philippines, I consult with an American investment bank in New York City, and I also provide investor relations management services to different American issuers. These are companies that are fundraising $5 million all the way to $75 million a year. And in the Philippines, I have a lending license because I'm a co-owner of a lending company. And at the same time, I recently invested in a tuna business and a small convenience store who's apparently going to have a lot of franchises soon, hopefully, with the help of Sharon, right? And David. So let's see where this goes. And yeah, so that's a bit more about me. And the next would be, well, I don't need her to introduce herself because I will be introducing her in behalf of herself. So our speaker would be Sharon next. So, okay, so the main agenda of the night. So let me just read what it says on the website. So tonight's event is about learning about the requirements, process, and costs in expanding in the Philippines. Our GBO member, Sharon Itona, is the current Chief Financial Officer of a central bank licensed cryptocurrency exchange company called Moneybees. She is also a certified public accountant who can show you the ropes on how to enter the Philippine market. So anything accounting, anything Philippines related, you could ask her, or maybe even crypto because she's well connected in that space. So please help me welcome Sharon Itona. So maybe just clap.
Thank you, TJ, for that very generous introduction. So, just to give a bit of background about myself. So, very much like TJ and David here, I also wear many hats. But for tonight, we would like to focus on my accounting, taxation, and business registration hat. So, I have an accounting firm also in the Philippines, very much like Elias. So we also do taxation, very much like what you do, audit and business registration in the Philippines. Actually, I would like to talk to you later because we also have clients who are looking into setting up companies outside the Philippines that could be tax efficient. So that could be a topic for us later on. So for tonight, I'll be sharing with you, like what TJ said, how it is to start a business in the Philippines. So we have a very limited time. So this is just a snapshot, broad idea. That's just to give you a broad idea on how to set up a business in the Philippines. So I'll be sharing my slides. I prepared a few slides so it will be easier for us to discuss. Okay, I think you see my slides already. So I own this firm. It's called ThinkTac Professional Services, and it's thanks to TJ because it's actually his team who designed our logo. So thank you, TJ. So ThinkTac has been around for almost 4 years, going 5 years. But personally, I have been doing tax and accounting practice for 2 decades already. So I'm also a CPA and a law graduate in the Philippines. In terms of affiliations, Think Tank is supporting or handling Zero accounting system and also Payday. It's an HRIS payroll system. Think Tank is also an accredited member of BNI and of course GBO. Okay, for tonight, we'll be covering these four topics. So, business environment in the Philippines, options for business structure, highlight on fintech, regulations, and how to get started. Okay, so it's a good news for everyone because just as of yesterday's records, our COVID cases has significantly dropped coming from a peak in October. So we're now at just 1,242 cases. So I know we're not the best country to handle this COVID situation, but we've improved a lot and the economy is opening and businesses are running again. We recently removed the curfew and lockdowns. So So it's good news for everyone. And also we are now in the fourth quarter of the year, which is usually the best time to think about setting up a new business. If you want to start a business in the Philippines, the best time to have it registered is Q1 or the start of the year, because that's when registrations and licenses are renewed. So you are in line with the renewal timeline. So if you are thinking of putting up a business in the Philippines, this is the best time. Okay, to share about recent tax regulations. So we with our current president, we had this new regulations that were enacted. So we have the train law, which reduced the VAT threshold or increased the VAT threshold to 3 million, coming from 1.9 million in revenue. So that means that if you are earning 3 million and above, you are VATable already as an entity. But if you're earning below 3 million, you are non-VAT. Okay, so lower, if you're a non-VAT entity, it's lower in taxes. VAT rate in the Philippines is 12%. I know that in different jurisdictions, the VAT rate could be different. Others, it's at 7 or 8%. But in the Philippines, it's 12%, and the threshold is 3 million pesos. And also under train law, we have reduced the rate for individuals taxes. So we updated our progressive tax table, and it's now lower rates. We also newly introduced an 8% fixed rate option for individuals, which simplifies the tax filing for individual taxpayers. So just to summarize, train law is really created primarily for individuals who benefit from it. Whereas we also have create law, which is enacted and made effective in July 2020, so just last year. Under create law, we reduced the minimum corporate income tax to just 1%. Formerly, it's 2%. So that's half savings. Our graduated income tax rate for corporations is reduced to 20% or 25%. It's formerly 30%. So that's also a significant improvement in terms of our taxation in the Philippines. So definitely, this is a very good time to start a business in the Philippines. In terms of business structures, we have three options that are usually considered by foreign entities who want to start a business in the Philippines. So we have number one, irregular domestic corporation. A subsidiary of a foreign corporation would fall under this category. When registered, if a subsidiary is registered in the Philippines, it usually falls as a domestic corporation. Number two, we have a foreign corporation, which is a branch office of a foreign corporation. And then number three, we have a representative office. So we'll cover the differences of these three options. Okay. Okay, so number one, domestic corporation or a subsidiary is allowed to earn income in the Philippines, and it's required to have 2 to 15 incorporators or directors, and majority should be Philippine residents. So this is also an improvement in our laws in the Philippines, because before the minimum incorporator is 5. So it's now simpler, it's easier to set up a business in the Philippines with just 2 incorporators required. And majority should be Philippine residents. So in terms of taxation, a domestic corporation's issuance of shares is subject to 1% documentary stamp tax, and this corporation is subject to, like what we discussed, 20% or 25% income tax on worldwide income. So income coming from the Philippines and outside the Philippines. And it's also subject to dividends tax to non-resident stockholders. In terms of allowed foreign ownership, we're allowed to have up to 40%. But if we exceed 40%, there's a minimum paid up capital of $200,000 US dollars, unless it's exporting goods or services or generates revenue from abroad of more than 60% of its gross sales, in which case the minimum paid up capital is waived. You can be more than 40% foreign owned, but no need for a paid-up capital requirement if you are exporting and generating 60% of gross sales from abroad. So these are the basic description or requirements for a domestic corporation or a subsidiary in the Philippines. Next is the foreign corporation or a branch office, which can be earning in the Philippines. It's usually represented by a resident agent who should be a Filipino or foreigner residing in the Philippines. There is no need for Filipinos in the board of directors, and it can be 100% owned by the parent foreign company. It's also considered as a foreign entity that is licensed to do business in the Philippines. A foreign corporation is not subject to DST on shares of stock, unlike the domestic corporation, which is subject to DST. In terms of income tax, it's subject to 25% on Philippine income only, and subject to branch profit remittance tax. So branch BPRT or branch profit remittance tax is a tax paid whenever this foreign company would remit profit to its parent. Okay. In terms of capital, the paid-up capital requirement is $200,000 unless it's exporting goods or services and generate revenue of more than 60% of its gross sales, in which case the requirement for paid-up capital is waived. Okay. Now we go to our third option, which is a foreign corporation, which is a representative office or an RO. For an RO, it's not allowed to earn income in the Philippines. So that is the significant difference with the previous one, because it's a cost center and its main purpose is to deal with clients of the parent or for information dissemination, communication centers, market product handling, customer support, or service. So it's really like a back office. It should be represented by a resident agent who should be a Filipino or foreigner residing in the Philippines. There is no need for Filipinos in the board of directors, and it should be fully financed by a foreign corporation, and it's noted as a foreign-owned, organized, and existing under foreign laws. In practice, this is the usual challenge for a foreign corporation registering in the Philippines, because our SEC would ask for the financial documents of the foreign corporation parent. So the foreign corporation parent should be able to show in its financial documents that it has the capacity to finance this RO in the Philippines. Otherwise, that could be grounds for rejection of the application. Also, in terms of taxation, since it's not allowed to earn income in the Philippines, so it follows that it's exempt on income tax and VAT. For initial capital, it's required to have 30,000 US dollars, which should be supported with proof of remittance to the Philippines. Okay. So just to summarize, I prepared this table which shows you the summary of what we have discussed. So there are differences and similarities in terms of earning income. So the domestic and branch office is allowed to earn income in the Philippines, whereas an RO cannot earn income in the Philippines. In terms of incorporators, for a domestic, it's required to have 2 to 50, maximum of 15. Whereas with foreign corporation, whether a branch office or an RO, we just need an RA or a resident agent. In terms of taxes, they have differences on DST, but what we highlight here is that an RO, being an entity not earning income in the Philippines, is exempt from income tax and VAT. In terms of capital, domestic corporation is allowed to have more than 40% ownership as long as it has 200,000 USD in capital. And for a branch office, it's required to have at least 200,000 USD. And for an RO, it's required to have at least 30,000 USD. Okay, so we now go to a very specific industry, which is our industries that are covered by our Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or BSP. That's our central bank. So for those who would like to start a business that is covered by this operation, so either a remittance agent or money changer or forex dealing, this operation should get a license from our BSP, and the requirement is really very stringent. So this is like a secondary license that you need to secure before you can start operations, and it's a different governing body that issues this license. So let's just go through it quickly. So our basis for this license types and capital requirement is our BSP Circular 942. So if you want to check the other details of this license, you can check out this circular. So the licenses are classified into types. So we have A, B, C, D, E, F, depending on the volume of transactions and the nature of your activities. There is a minimum capital requirement that should be in the bank. So it should be deposited, and we are required to give proof of deposit or proof of existence of these funds, and also support where these funds came from. So if these funds are coming from capital, then we need to show supporting documents that investors or shareholders indeed gave this much in capital. So we have here for type A large scale operator because it has an average monthly transaction volume of at least 75 million pesos or $1.5 million. Next to that is a small scale operator, which is a remittance agent with or without money changing or forex dealing, with monthly transaction volume of less than 75 million or 1.5 million. And then you just check out the capital requirement across each type. So there you go. I think the rest of the types are easy to understand. Now we go to another special kind of operation, which is our virtual currency. We initially have this circular, so circular 1108, which is very dynamic. Every now and then our BSP would issue new regulations surrounding this industry because it's very unique and it's new also for our regulatory body. So in terms of capitalization, a VASP or virtual asset service provider with safekeeping, meaning it's keeping the funds of its customers and or administration services. The required capital is 50 million pesos. However, if you are a VASP without safekeeping and or admin services, then the capital requirement is lower, which is 10 million pesos. So right now, just to share, practically speaking, it's all we have word that BSP is no longer issuing new licenses for VASP. But of course, it could change anytime. But at this moment, it's put on hold. So if you are a foreign entity who desires to start a trading operation or any business surrounding fintech or virtual assets, you may want to consider looking for existing entities that are already licensed with the BSP and then just partner with them or acquire their license. Right now, that is the best way to go because our BSP department is very strict and they have stopped issuing new licenses. Okay. Now, how to get started in the Philippines? We have all these government agencies that you need to register with. So number one, we have the SEC or the Securities and Exchange Commission. This is where the legal entity is born. This is really the first step. So this is where we submit our articles of incorporation, bylaws, and all these documents that will be born as our legal entity. So it's also our SEC that issues our certificate of incorporation. After securing an SEC license or permit, then you go to a local government unit or the city where you want to operate your business. That's where you get your business permit. After getting your business permit, then you move on to the Bureau of Internal Revenue. Actually, you can process BIR in parallel with LGU because our BIR has also relax the rules. Before, you are required to do number two first, LGU business permit, before you can move to BIR. But right now, our BIR department has relaxed the rules and allows you to register with them even without a business permit. So BIR, or Bureau of Internal Revenue, is our taxation body or department in the Philippines. Okay, this is where we file for our taxes and pay for our taxes. And number four, this is optional. You do the SSS, PhilHealth, and HDMF, or Housing Development Mutual Fund, only if or once you have an employee. Until then, you do not really need to register with this number four. Okay, so sounds easy, right? In terms of, well, let's to go back. In terms of timeline, right now, the fastest that we can get an SEC certificate of incorporation is 3 to 4 weeks. With LGU, give it another 3 to 4 weeks. With DIR, in a week's time, you can be registered. So if you add all these weeks, then it would round up to 2 to 3 months to get all these licenses. Of course, there are many factors that can affect this timeline, but that's roughly it. But if your question is, how fast can it be for me to just start operating? You can actually start operating with just 1 and 3. That's the most significant licenses that you need just to start operating. Okay, so 1 and 3, and in a month's time or 5 weeks, you can start operating already. So how to get started? Just to recap, these are also the services that ThinkTac can offer. So we can help you with number one, your business registration and setup, and also consulting on your options and requirements on how you go about and maneuver all these processes in the Philippines. And once you're registered, you might need tax advisory and accounting, which is a service that we also provide. We can have a retainer covering this scope. So we can handle your tax filing and computation and all the renewals with the government agencies. And number three, once you're operational, you would also need an audited FS and other compliance requirements and special projects. We can also help you with that. So we think that we are all different. Our values bind us towards accomplishing our goals, which is to prosper in our businesses. This is how we do our business, and this is who we are. So thank you, and please feel free to get in touch if you want. You have any questions or you want to discuss more on your plans in the Philippines. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Sharon, for the wonderful talk and sharing with us your expertise. Anyone has any question from the audience? And Sharon, maybe you want to stop sharing your screen so we get all back.
Yeah, I'm figuring out where it is.
Sharon, it's easy to send me this brochure.
Sure. Give me your email so I can reach out to you.
Should I type it down anywhere?
Yeah, sure. Just type it in the chat box.
Chat box. Just give me, what is it? Open chat. Okay.
Oh, so my good friend Cheryl also joined. Hi, Cheryl. So, yeah, their family has an auto repair business.
Okay. Can you see that?
Yes, I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Cheryl.
Cheryl is shy, guys. Okay, so, well, Miguel is probably in between calls right now. Leanne, do you have any questions to Sharon to get engaged?
Sharon, I have a super naive question.
Here we go. Let's do this.
I would like to understand an example or a use case of an RO of having a branch that cannot earn income.
Okay. Like what kind of business would that be, you mean?
Yeah,
It's
what kind of
usually
business would that be?
it could be the BPOs. Like you are providing the back office services for your company. So you would have a foreign company which is outside the Philippines, and you want to have a back office that supports your parent company, so that you can set that up in the Philippines. It's like a back office services, and then hire Filipinos to do your back office stuff.
I have a follow-up question for that though. So um, let's say you set up an FO, and for some reason the
RO,
or
yeah.
RO, the parent company's host country has higher taxes compared to the Philippines. So if they register their employees to be based in the Philippines, they get taxed using Philippine laws. Is that how it
Well,
works?
if you're okay, it seems like there are two factors to your question. Tax of the first factor is the tax of the employees. So for Filipinos hired by that RO, and these Filipinos are in the Philippines, then we follow Philippine taxation for that employee's income. So it's the employee's income that is taxed in the Philippines. And now if we are talking about income of the RO, well, it's given already that that RO cannot earn income in the Philippines. So it's just a cost center. It's just passing on work to this RO that is in the Philippines. It shouldn't be making money. So there's no tax consequence to it in terms of income.
I mean, let's say the company, the RO would say like, "Oh, I'm gonna hire David. David's not Filipino, but he's based in the Philippines, and he could get salary in the Philippines." So, is a is the income or the salary still based on Philippine laws, isn't it?
Well, we follow CETUS. So if that's very crucial. If David is in the Philippines, earning in the Philippines, doing work in the Philippines, then we follow Philippine tax laws. But if David is a foreigner that is outside the Philippines doing work outside the Philippines, then he should follow the laws where he is at. So it's situs. We follow the location.
I see.
We can just pass on cost that easily. It has to be supported by either the location or nationality,
Cause
or where the work is rendered.
right, because I have some use cases now in the U.S. if they actually set up that kind of setup and have their employees be registered in the Philippines. But then again, the IRS is might have
They
another
wouldn't be
opinion.
here. Yeah, it doesn't make
Might
sense. They're
have
not
another.
here, not Philippine nationals, so
Yeah. We'll see.
they can be considered as consultants to this RO.
Okay.
Like this RO can pay these foreigners who are outside the Philippines. But it doesn't make sense why they need to pass the cost to the RO in the Philippines.
I don't know. Everyone's looking for a tax break, right? Like the millionaires and everyone just figuring out things. If they can do it, why can't we?
Yeah, yes.
um, Alvaro, do you have some question? Do you have any questions, Alvaro? You're muted.
No, I think the congratulations, Sharon. It was a bright talk, and I think it's crystal clear. Obviously, you are really far away from my reality, and I learned from other legal systems and taxation systems, but unfortunately, I don't have any question because it's completely different from the system here in Spain.
That's it. Maybe you
Right.
guys can collaborate later.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah, should we have clients who would like to set up a business maybe in Spain and vice versa, then we can
Yeah.
talk.
Okay. Nice.
Alvaro, allow me because I missed the introduction. What exactly you're doing?
I'm an FL,
What's
family
what?
lawyer. I'm partner of Thinking Abogados, a law firm based here
Okay.
in Spain.
All right.
I have explained that we are specialized on our clients instead of being specialized on a particular legal field, because clients are not worried about what are the different specializations in the legal business. It is not their business, so they are not worried about that. They are worried about their problems, and we try to solve them being specialized on them, on their business, knowing how they work, how they feel, how they taste. When you have all their business on the top of your preferences, you can give a legal approach, a better legal approach. Sometimes it's not the perfect fit from a technical legal point of view, but for the client, believe me that this approach is better than the perfect technical one. So this is what we try to do.
Are you dealing more with the corporate side or litigation?
Both. Indeed. We do not like to make the litigation because here in Spain the courts are in a mess. We can spend a couple of years to have a court ruling to solve a dispute, and this is a mess also for the clients. However, when the client needs litigation, we have to go there. So we cover all the areas, and obviously we are a small firm. We started in 2017, so we do not have a huge legal team, but those areas that we cannot cover with our own professionals, we have the support of external ones, but they are guided by us through the client. We are telling them, okay, I know your approach from a technical point of view, but please introduce in this way to the client, or look this alternative that could be fit better to the client.
Okay, are you dealing with registration of intellectual properties? European
Of course.
patent?
Yeah. We do not do it in ourselves. We have the help of patent agents and trademark agents, but we give the first approach to the clients. We give the advice. For example, we have an Austrian client that manufactures any kind of devices that could be sold in the TV channel, the TV selling channels. They are specialized on this sector, and they are covering Europe, US, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. And for example, we give the first approach the freedom to operate, to let them know they can commercialize this device with this name, and after that we made the registration with this trademark or patent agents.
Okay, well, just have in mind that Cyprus has the best tax system regarding the patent and the royalty income in European Union, and that was one of the best in the world, and so there is a potential there if you're dealing with this area.
Okay, I will be glad if you can share with me a PowerPoint or an introduction to your company to see what you are doing and take into account in the event a client needs your services.
Okay, do you have an email or something?
Yeah, of course, I will share with you. It's in the platform.
Wow, so people are closing deals right in front
Yeah,
of us. That's good.
wow.
I'm waiting for Miguel to ask a question because I have a feeling it's crypto related. Like Miguel and his crypto portfolio, that should be interesting.
Yeah.
Wonder if
Yeah, he was interested, but he sent me a WhatsApp telling me that
There's a call.
an important call entered and he couldn't connect to the meeting. He apologized to you.
And any crypto related questions for Sharon here? Are you ready for crypto questions, Sharon? More on regulations probably in the Philippines. Anyone?
Are there any regulations in connection with fintechs based on cryptocurrencies there in Philippines?
Okay, there we go.
Well, that, yeah, for fintech or specifically crypto trading, that's covered by our Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, the
Yeah, but
BSP regulations. Yeah,
is
that's
there
really just it for now. Yeah.
okay? Because here in Europe they are they they have a main concern about the money laundering issue linked to the
Yeah.
cryptocurrencies. So they are starting to regulate it now, and because I have a client who wanted to be a payment service provider through a cryptocurrency platform, the central Spanish bank rejected the application because they consider that it wasn't a payment service provider, because in reality there weren't transfer of money to one pocket to another pocket. They are only exchanging tokens. Token is not money, it's not fiat money, so we have some legal troubles, and now we are starting the path to be regulated and probably to be authorized by our bank. Indeed, this evening, this afternoon, I have a meeting with a GBO member. You will be probably interested in speaking with him, Tom Halapaz, who has a project loaded based on cryptocurrencies and gold and silver. And it could be of your interest to connect with them to expand their business into Philippines.
Yeah.
It will be nice.
Actually, it's the same thing here in the Philippines. We have what we call AMLC, or Anti-Money Laundering Council. So it's this body that regulates the flow of money. So they set rules on documents and checklists that we have to follow, like a KYC requirements. So we have that at least, and we need to follow that if we want our license to be renewed or to be kept active. Otherwise, we can be totally shut down if should there be findings of any money laundering activities.
Okay.
You
Yeah,
want to know?
it's also very strict here. We really have to follow these rules.
You
They,
want to?
they are trying here. Excuse me, TJ.
Yeah, go ahead.
Continue, please.
Oh, okay.
Continue.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, you want to know, it's really funny because people started crypto for anonymity or like being unknown or being secret. But in the Philippines, we started regulating it. So before you could buy or sell it in an exchange, you have to register to the government. So they know probably, or they have an idea how much Bitcoin or whatever crypto you're carrying. So secret no more, I guess.
Yeah.
That's happening.
Here we are obligated to include in our tax declaration, and the problem with the payment service providers are that they want to the companies not to touch the funds or provide with an insurance policy granting all the funds managed by the company, and this is a great obstacle because nobody wants to insurance this kind of risk based on cryptocurrencies, because you know that this could be changed. The value of the operation can be changed by minutes. So we have a challenge here. I don't know how we are going to solve, but I'm eager to know how are you going to solve there in Philippines. Probably we can learn something from more open markets.
Well, my opinion on that is, let's say the Spanish government says, okay, you owe us this amount of tax, but Bitcoin probably plunges down. So by tomorrow, it's like, oh, but my capital gains is smaller now because Bitcoin's value went down. So this is how much I only owe you. And then tomorrow it went up again, so you gotta keep that. Yeah. There must be a way or a trigger, right? Because that would be really hilarious, like the up and downs.
Okay.
What can you say, Sharon? Yeah.
Right. Well, here in the Philippines, our tax filing is periodic. So it's either monthly or quarterly. So whether it's not every day that we need to compute the taxes. So over the span of a period, so a month or a quarter, if you made money, net gain, then that's taxable, subject to tax.
Like make your life easier. In Cyprus are tax-free.
Right. So I'm so curious how it is in Cyprus.
Yeah. Oh, there is no taxation on titles, whether it's shares or bonds or debentures. So this is
Wow.
something that we can discuss, Sharon.
Yes,
It's
because
one of the
I
little
have a
things on your brochure. That's why I asked you to send it over.
right, right. Because this company I'm affiliated with is looking for a jurisdiction outside the Philippines that is friendlier to fintech.
Mhm.
Wow, I guess we know where the money is going now.
But don't use Cypriot bank. Just make it clear. The biggest problem we're gonna have is to open a bank account in Cyprus, and of course we want to avoid it at all costs, especially when it comes to crypto. They will not recognize the funds.
Well,
Mm.
too late now. This is going on YouTube, guys. So good luck. What's gonna happen?
No problem, my friend. Just I'm keep fighting with the bankers for a whole lot of reasons.
David, you want to say something?
Well, you were talking about taxation of crypto in the Philippines. Right now, I think the BIR is looking at it as if you haven't changed the crypto into fiat currency, you have nothing to tax yet because they don't consider the crypto as a currency. But if you use the crypto to buy something, so the person receiving the crypto, it's considered a transaction, and therefore it would become taxable as part of the income. So it all depends how you're using it.
How it's used.
And then if you're using it to buy something and it's a vatable item, then the person will have to pay VAT on it. Of course, the BIR probably has not really put everything into place yet because they're very slow and they really don't have a way of checking easily unless a bank would say a large amount of money came in for some reason.
I'm curious
Right.
how barter trade works. Let's say if I give Leanne a chicken and she gives me a few dozen of eggs, how will that be taxed? I give like one egg to the government?
You follow fair market value. So you put a fair market value to both assets or properties, and then you offset it. Whoever gave more would have a gain. Like whoever received more would have a gain.
Okay. That's
Just
how-
to add more suspense, David, just for your information, there was a court case in, if I remember well, in Ireland a few years ago that it considered the trading of cryptocurrencies as a currency. Therefore, they are excluded under this section. I don't remember exactly the article of the law or the case, but we can change that. It was in the European court, if I remember well.
Well, here in the Philippines, when they don't know what to do usually, either they make up something really fast or they're looking at American jurisprudence.
Yeah, for crypto here, especially with the company that we're connected with, what we do is we treat it like forex. So just another currency that when you're as long as you're not disposing it, then you just recognize and realize gain or loss. But once you sell it or dispose it, that's when you recognize the gain or the loss, which is reportable. So like what David said, when you do an exchange, that's when you recognize the gain. But if just in your inventory, then it's just unrealized gain or loss.
Well, anyhow, if you look, VAS before were recognized, well, they were registered under the laws of forex companies until they made it a separate category this year.
I love this session because now I know how to barter trade better based on everyone's insights and inputs, just in case an apocalypse happens. I know what to do, when to barter, how to get more of the gain, right?
Well, the thing is, in the Philippines, they're very, very slow at implementing anything. Like in 2013, they decided to issue regulations on transfer pricing based on the OECD regulations, but it's only in the last year that they're actually looking at regulating it by issuing forms to fill out, etc., on transfer pricing. So you see, it took them around 8 years till something actually happened.
But David, what I would say to that is it's double-edged because it could also work to our advantage, depending on how you move around the speed of our agencies in the Philippines.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
but it depends
that's
also.
actually yeah, that's actually the reason why we are in this profession, right?
Yeah, but the transfer pricing thing is like, they want a transfer pricing study. What are you supposed to base it on? Actually, I know the person from the BIR that wrote up all the regulations and was the one that went to the OECD to figure out transfer pricing. She's retired now from the BIR, and I saw how she does everything. And basically, all they do is get whatever public financial records there are from the Securities and Exchange Commission, because all companies in the Philippines have to file their annual audit reports with the SEC, and it becomes a public document, even if it's a private company. So anybody can get a copy.
Right.
So you just choose a few, you look through them to see which ones you think are more to your advantage, and you use that for your study. You're actually supposed to give in a study every year, but I think very few companies are actually doing it.
Ooh, I have a question for Sharon. This is based on recent events. So there's a news circulating that the BIR in the Philippines wants to tax influencers, YouTubers, and vloggers for earning from their ad income.
Mm.
So I'm curious, like if a foreign YouTuber wants to register in the Philippines, then they should only follow should they only follow the taxations here in the Philippines and not in their host country, or it will depend because if they're an American, the IRS still taxes them regardless where they are, right? But if they're not
Right.
American, maybe there is. Is it a better setup? What do you think, Sharon?
Well, depends on the country. So they should make a study on where is the better which has better tax jurisdiction. I don't see the why would a global YouTuber would register in the Philippines? There really is no
Nas Daily.
advantage.
Nas Daily. What about that guy Nas Daily, right? He's here in the Philippines. He has operations.
I can tell you that there are certain benefits in Cyprus if this is what you're looking for.
Yes, better go
Remember?
outside the Philippines. Well, I think what you're referring to, Jay, is even a YouTuber who is a foreigner and outside the Philippines but is paid in the Philippines, this person can be taxed for that portion earned in the Philippines. So we have our withholding tax rules. So if the payer is in the Philippines, so that portion of the tax is withheld by the payer in the Philippines before the foreign YouTuber would receive the money for whatever reason.
Well, it's not
We
really
have
worth it. It's not worth
DJ,
it because YouTube, if YouTube pays a large amount, they're already doing American withholding tax unless there's a tax treaty. So, but there's still something to
right.
pay. And then if you're in the Philippines, you need proof of that to be able to offset it on your local taxes. So it doesn't really help you. But it depends on the
Mhm.
amounts because they only do the withholding tax if it's thousands of dollars per month. If you only make a couple $100, they're not withholding anything. You see? And then as for an American, it does make a difference where he lives because they do have a certain amount. It's like 100,000 something dollars. If you're outside, you don't have to pay tax on. So you still can get away with that if you're in a lower tax jurisdiction, but usually it's not the case.
DJ, let's make your life easier. Basically, you have two options. First of all, regarding the Americans, you always have to bear in mind FATCA implication and whether you're falling within this criteria. So let's give you an example. What about a YouTuber pass on all his intellectual right, let's say, to a Cyprus company, and all this income will be taxed in the Cyprus company? This income, it can be taxed, let's say, in the Cyprus company. You pay 12.5%, which the corporation tax in Cyprus, and most probably the American will not be charged VAT because Cyprus is VAT registered, but there's, as long the income generated outside Cyprus and European Union, no VAT will be charged. So let's assume that you have the 12.5% corporation tax. Now, when it comes to the American, he wants to declare his money in his pockets. So he has two options. Either he will declare it in form of salary, which means that he has to get registered, let's say in Cyprus, in order to generate his income in Cyprus, and will be taxed under Cyprus tax law, brackets, see if there is an implication in the United States at this point. Or the easiest option will be to declaration of dividends from the Cyprus company to the US. Now, when you declare your dividend in Cyprus, as long as you are not Cypriot resident or domicile, there will be no withholding tax for the American in the Cyprus company. No withholding tax at all. So, however, if in accordance to the US law, if you have a foreign entity and you're receiving dividend, you need to deduct, let's say, 30% tax, then yes, you need to pay the 30% tax in the United States in accordance to the US law. But by doing this, let's say, trade, you pay 12.5% in Cyprus, plus whatever need to pay in US. If, let's assume that the YouTuber is paying 50% tax because he's a YouTuber or whatever he is in the United States, definitely you have a certain tax advantage by using this kind of trade. But you need to double check the tax implication in the United States before you do any tax planning like the one I mentioned before.
And then there's the cost of maintaining the company.
Yeah, you have to
Exactly.
maintain the company in Cyprus with all the relevant costs. There is no high, especially for the Americans, because the cost of life in America is tremendously higher than the Cyprus one. Basically, you need to see the tax rates, especially factor implication. I believe that there will be implication regarding dividend received.
That's very interesting because overseas Filipino workers, they're not really taxed because they're already taxed under a host country in the first place. Or if you,
Sorry, what?
There's a thing in the Philippines because my parents are overseas workers, so there's a thing where overseas workers are not taxed in the Philippines. As long as you earn the money outside the Philippines, the Philippine government will not go after you. That's basically it. So you're just gonna pay your host country or wherever you earn the tax or the money from. That's where you're gonna be taxed. So I'm just running some ideas in my head where what if you actually register something on Cyprus and then you just render. There's a lot of services that can be rendered through the internet. Make a logo, make a music video, all these things like anything creative and intellectual property related that can be generated even if I'm in the moon or if I'm like on the beach. I can do that. But when it comes to regulations, you can actually
exactly. And I have a lot of clients that use Cyprus for all those benefits. To start with, it has among the lowest corporation tax in the European Union, which is 12.5%. When it comes to intellectual property, under certain conditions, you get a tax relief of 80%, which is reducing the corporation tax to 2.5%. This is just an indication when it comes to intellectual property. Plus, it's part of European Union. You have an open market with the European Union, but obviously the biggest problem, as I mentioned before, is the banking. So, if you have, let's say, a bank in Filipino, United States, or you want to open a corporate account, whatever, just use the Cyprus company as a shell, and you have all the investments anywhere in the world. You can have a miracle. And as I say, certain transactions are excluded from the corporation tax in Cyprus, especially the profit from titles. When I mean titles, I mean shares, debentures, anything.
I have a curious question
including
for you,
crypto.
Yeah, I have a curious question for you, Elias. since I'm the ambassador of the Philippines and it's my job to promote all my members, including David and especially Sharon, she's the star for tonight. I'm curious, would you be interested to set up like a representative office here in the Philippines to get clients within the Philippines to help them set up in Cyprus? Is that something that has ever crossed your mind?
To be honest, no. In fact, I did not even looking for Philippines. I just seen the message this morning, say, okay, let's join the meeting. Simple as that. But yes, I'm interested.
Just to give you an idea, I mean, probably the global brands, Filipino global brands that you'll be hearing a lot lately is like Jollibee, or like the rights of Shakey's to Middle East is actually based here in the Philippines, and I just learned last night from my mentor, SM Group of the Philippines have a chain in the U.S. called Seafood City. Have you heard of that, Sharon? Seafood Cities. In the U.S.,
No.
there's like a grocery, or like it's not a mall, it's not also a grocery, it's something in between, but it's actually owned by the SM Group. So I wonder if
I think we have that in McKinley, right?
McKinley,
The
okay.
gig.
I see. Well, imagine if these rich Filipino conglomerates figures out, oh, maybe there's a Cyprus way, and they go to Sharon, and then they go to Elias. There could be something there, and at the same time, where they go to David, they go to Elias. There could be something there because Filipino brands are starting to gain global recognition slowly. And I'm not saying this because I'm the ambassador of Philippines and I'm a Filipino, but I'm just seeing a pattern because I've been doing some branding work with different foreign clients. I rarely do branding in the Philippines. Sharon knows it. Look at her logo. And then yeah.
Look, Philippines is a big country. It's a country with 110 million population, if I remember well. So it's not a miniature. It's definitely there is a lot of potential over there. But obviously, I don't know the market, to be honest with you. It's the first time I'm joining a meeting with the Philippines. I did not even look on the taxation of Philippines.
I think
Yeah,
one of the big
we
points.
can. Yeah.
Sorry, one of the points
Go
is
ahead, David.
you have to check if Filipinos can open bank accounts, because there's a lot of places the Philippines is blacklisted for bank accounts. If you're a Filipino, like in Hong Kong, it's very difficult for a Filipino to open a bank account, even in a Filipino bank, unless they're a resident of Hong Kong.
Hold on a moment. Philippines are, I haven't checked, is among the jurisdictions that they are not cooperate with.
They're still one of the only countries in the world where, under the law, there's bank secrecy. If you look at the central bank website, there's a 26-page primer on bank secrecy.
Okay. In fact, they sent me a few days ago the list of non-corporate countries.
Yeah, the
Notice I
Philippines is
did not
listed
even have the time to check it. Just give me amendments. Just give me a second.
Because Elias, I've also known some family offices here in the Philippines, and I'm surprised myself that they're actually investing more outside the Philippines than more on the inside. So, if they needed some effective way of how to set up, I guess Cyprus is also a very interesting place.
Especially when it has to do with titles and this kind of trust, one of the best in the world, if not the best.
Cool. Okay.
As I say, it's completely tax-free, excluded from taxation specifically. So if you have, let's say you have a corporate account with JP Morgan, buy and sell shares in any stock exchange in the world, all the capital gains, it doesn't matter how billions they are, they're completely tax-free.
Wow, okay. You guys already shared your contacts with each other. I know I promised Cheryl I'm not going to make her be active a bit because she's shy. She told me in the first place, but she's going to listen.
I sent my email to Sharon. I believe I'm expecting an email from you, and I got the email from Alvaro.
Don't you want to exchange details with David as well? David, would you like to provide your details?
I'll put my email in.
Yeah.
David, what was your occupation? I missed the beginning.
Well, I'm doing a little bit of stuff like Sharon, not exactly the same. So
You are based in Philippines?
I'm based in the Philippines for 25 years.
Okay.
And most of my clients are from overseas. I have very few local clients. Like it's 99% companies from all over the world that set up a business in the Philippines
Okay.
in all kinds of things. And so I'm doing that. I'm doing also recently, for the last couple of years, a lot of FDA registrations. There has been a huge surge in that, especially because of the pandemic. And I'm also involved in a software company. I'm also selling disaster relief products, and I'm involved in a small internet service provider. So I see a lot of things because so many, depending on the company that wants to set up here. And there's a lot of laws that restrict foreign ownership. It's not only the paid-in capital, it depends on the industry. For example, a recruitment company can only be 25% foreign owned. There's problems on land ownership here. It can only be 40% foreign owned through a corporation.
Okay.
There's a lot of restrictions. I also sell like the disaster relief products. I'm selling it mainly to the local government units.
Cheryl,
So
if you have internet problems, issue a ticket to David because he has an ISP company. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't do anything in Metro Manila. There's enough competition here. I work in the outside of Manila, so for internet. But yeah, there's a lot of issues in the Philippines. It's not that easy to do business here. And the same thing, like I said, it's hard for Filipinos to do things overseas. For foreigners, though, on a private level, it's interesting because a foreigner who lives in the Philippines is only taxed on his Filipino derived income. He doesn't have to pay any taxes on income that's derived from overseas. Meaning,
Then
if I
may I ask you, how easy for, let's say, a Cypriot company or a European company to open a bank account or a broker account in Philippines?
They cannot. The banks here will only open accounts for companies that are registered in the Philippines.
I see.
I once tried to do something special for a Hong Kong corporation, and I spoke to one bank, and they were open to it to open a branch office of the Hong Kong corporation in the Philippines,
Mm-hmm.
and that they were okay with, and let the trading, whatever they wanted to do through that branch office.
Okay, but this is creating
But
some
the reason wasn't taxation. The reason was they're driving everybody crazy for the bank accounts in Hong Kong. If you're not a resident, so like every 3 months they're asking a KYC, proof of address, and things like this. They're making it very, very difficult.
You're worse than us.
Elias,
Not Hong Kong, huh?
if you need to
Okay.
set up a bank account in the Philippines, I could probably help. So I have a lending company, and we're a fintech partner of Union Bank. It's one of the largest banks here in the Philippines, and
They're not allowed. They're not allowed under the law. That's the problem.
yeah, I can probably ask around if how that works. But I guess Sharon also knows how that works.
Well, that's correct. Unless you have an entity set up in the Philippines, you cannot open an account in the Philippines.
Okay. So
For
once
a
Even for individuals, they won't open an account for you unless you're a resident, a legal resident. You can't be a tourist and open a bank account.
Mhm.
yeah, so once you have
you can use your hotel as address.
so once you have an entity, I can help you connect with Union Bank.
Teacher, may I ask you, are you based in Philippines or in US?
I am currently based in the Philippines right now.
Philippines, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like what I mentioned earlier, a lot of people confuse me as being an American. So there you go.
And definitely you have a more American accent. You
Yeah,
study in English?
I studied in American school before, international
Okay.
American school. Yeah, I
Alright.
came here back in the Philippines 2011.
Okay. I have right my email. Is it to send me a company brochure or something
Uh,
for
sh-
you?
sure. My email address is this one. You could also search me on the GBO site because I'm the ambassador, and this is my company website if you wish to know more what I do.
Okay.
I'm supposed not to promote myself when as an ambassador.
I'm asking you, so
Yeah, but
so
you're asking me, so I have to be polite and give it. But I usually like don't.
unless you are a very rude guy, and I don't like you rude guys.
No, I'm just saying, like as an ambassador, I should refrain from promoting myself during events. That's the thing. But since you asked, then there's no problem. Yeah, I can give. Okay, okay. All right, guys. So, any other last questions for Sharon? Cheryl, maybe you want to talk now, or still shy? She left. So there you go. Okay, so yeah.
Thank you,
Oh,
everyone.
Cheryl's
He's
back.
back.
Okay, Cheryl's back. Okay, Cheryl's back. Oh, Cheryl, we're just asking if you have any questions. Do you want to engage right now?
I know I'm fine with listening. This is actually all new to me, and I'm learning a lot from listening.
Yeah. So,
I'll better phrase my questions next time if I have the chance.
Oh,
cool.
I have a question for Sharon. Does Moneybees have a wallet also, or it's just they just do it directly the exchange?
It's just an exchange.
Oh, okay.
So it's really just buying and selling
Mhm.
the crypto of its customers. It doesn't keep the customers' crypto.
Ah, okay. Okay.
It's trading.
Yeah.
But it
Right.
has a sister company that is a wallet,
Ah,
Paylance.
okay.
Paylance keeps the cryptos of its customers, even fiat. So USD, PHP, and BTC, ETH
Okay, so it's
can
a
be kept
sister
in
company.
Paylance.
So it's basically they
It's
have
the
a
sister.
wallet.
It's
Okay, okay.
basically the same
If you
company.
put it that way,
It's basically the same company, just putting it like a
it's
different.
like left hand, right hand.
Yeah. Okay, but that requires two separate licenses, right?
That's true.
Exactly.
That's
And
true.
they're separate entities.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Okay. Well, I think coins.ph has something similar also. They have multiple entities
Right.
to keep things separate. All right, yeah.
David,
Okay.
Cheryl is my teammate in karate during college, so you know,
Mm.
martial arts interest is in the house right now. But
So
yeah,
that's why she's why you hit her too many times.
no, no, no. No, I invited her to check out GBO today because their family has an automotive and repair business. So I was like, hey, why don't you like check out
Mm.
GBO? You know, get to engage. I said, I'm shy. So okay, maybe just say hi, hello, or something. So here we are. Okay,
Okay.
so I guess that was good. We're already like 14 minutes past our supposedly ending. Um, do you have any last words, Sharon, or we're good to go? Should we dismiss this?
Well, I just wish everyone success in their businesses, and I hope that we can do business together someday, sometime.
That sounds good.
I'm quite
Thank
confident
you
that
and
we
God
can do
bless.
that.
That's good. Everyone's excited here. Elias, David, Cheryl, thank you for coming, and hope to see you guys next time. So I guess this is goodbye. You guys are good.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
Thank you
you.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.